Another game and another Edmonton Elks loss. This is the Green and Gold post-game show live from Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge. Iwanyk, Jay Milne with you here as the Edmonton Elks fall 23-20 to the Montreal Alouettes down at Commonwealth Stadium. For those listening, come on down to Century Casino after the game. If you want to, maybe you could win here. Jay's a winner here today. Yep. Jay's a winner here today, so you could still have time to come down here to Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge and be a winner yourself. Lots to get to on the show tonight for those listening or watching. Thanks for those on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Tune in, iHeartRadio, as well as those watching on YouTube. Paris Jewelers inbox 780-218-9999 is how you can get in touch with us via text, or you can jump into the nasty chat. Lots to get to on the show tonight. But starters, Jay, I'll just start with your thoughts on the game that we saw down at Commonwealth Stadium.
Well, we were talking about it here just before we went on air here, and I mean, last week it was the defense that was a letdown, whereas other facets of the game were better. Today, it's the quarterback that ultimately, I feel, let this team down. I thought the defense played pretty darn good. They had a couple long plays to who you had suggested at the start of the game was probably one of your players to watch in Fletcher, who went off tonight. I mean, 138 yards, total yards, 2 touchdowns. But yeah, I mean, we heard it on the broadcast that Suits was saying, we want Trey. And I don't blame you after what McLeod Bethel Thompson put together tonight. It just wasn't good enough. 28 of 42, 299 yards, a 67.5 efficiency rating. You look across the stat sheet and you look at Cody Fajardo, 20 of 30, 66.7%, 2 touchdowns, 269 yards. 2 touchdowns for Fajardo, 2 interceptions for McLeod Bethel Thompson, and I think that ultimately was the difference. He did not do it tonight. I don't know why the second interception was even thrown. He was clearly under pressure, throwing off his back foot. Those are 2 no-nos because the ball floats away on you. The ball isn't as accurate as you'd like to have it delivered, and it's intercepted on a drive where I said to you just before that, this is one of their first and longest drives of the game. They had put together, that was a 9-play drive. That was one of the longest drives that they'd have that night. And here they are in scoring distance and striking distance, and that's what happens. I would say it was awfully late in the game, but that was a definite turning point. And we talked about it in the pregame show. What were the keys to success? What were the keys to a victory for Edmonton tonight? Do their job. For the most part, the defense, and that's what we were talking about, do your job. For the most part, defense, they did do their job. Be mentally sound. That's great. Limit penalties. They had 4 penalties. 4 or 3 or 4, I can't remember exactly. But if 4 penalties for 36 yards, that's great. The last point I made was turnovers. To try and win the turnover battle. 3 turnovers for Edmonton, 0 for Montreal. That is just, it's hard to win that way. Maddie?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think where, I figured today if we were going to see a loss, there was a lot for me to be mad about. I'm not ready to be full mad Iwanyk yet.
Okay,
that's
a praise report for me.
Well, look, the Elks got a late touchdown. To me, they kind of lost by 10 points. Montreal playing a little back. Then the Elks get that last touchdown. But for 3.5 quarters, they played the Montreal Alouettes really well. They played the team who I would consider, based off of last week, probably the best team in the Canadian Football League. really well for 3.5 quarters. They were right in this football game. And that in itself gives me some hope that, okay, maybe this team can go up against some of the top teams in the Canadian Football League that we will especially see over the next 2 weeks in Toronto and BC, and could find a way to maybe pull off a win. But it's the fourth quarter that once again lets this team down.
And
Second straight week, it's the fourth quarter comes, and they can't get it done. They can't find a way to punch through and secure that victory. I will get to McLeod Bethel Thompson right away here, but like right when to the turnover situation, they go with Prokop. I don't like at midfield. That's a long two to go for it.
I've said
Don't
that
like
since
going
day
for
one.
it. Don't like going from two. As they lined up, I said to you, Prokop's going to the left, and he went to the left. And
Yeah,
Montreal called it. You hated that from last week. We were discussing that. You're like, you hate the
I hate
Prokop
the
goes
sideways
that way.
thing. Just go forward.
And
or
there was
don't
no
do it.
shot at it. There was absolutely no shot for the Edmonton Elks to get that. And Allison, the Owls, right there. Like, I'll start with defense and work my way to MBT, I guess, here. After that opening possession, which was not good for the secondary. Secondary got beat a couple times on that opening possession. It was 7-0 really quickly for the Montreal Alouettes. The defense held its own. I don't exactly know what the points off of turnover was. I feel like it might have been 0. I think that when the Owls had their 3 turnovers,
Yes.
I don't think they put up points from any of those 3, which is huge success to the defense in itself. I don't. What more can you ask for? And in one of those, David Cody missed the kick, but that's the field position that they were placed in, and the Elks didn't allow them to get closer to kick an easier field goal. The defense did its job in that situation, and that I'm very happy about. I'm very happy that we saw the secondary take that step forward from last week and learn from their mistakes. And maybe that is Lucius Purifoy there settling things down. Maybe it's just overall those guys learning from their week 1 mistakes and coaching. We saw that front 7 do pretty well. What was the sacks that we saw in this game?
No, there was 2 sacks.
They got 3 sacks. Oh, no, I'm looking at 3 sacks, yes.
3 sacks?
3 sacks. I thought they had a little bit of pressure on Cody Fajardo tonight. Couple of moments. Like, it's not going to be always perfect. There was a couple moments we saw that Walter Fletcher, it looks like he was going to be, was being held and somehow managed another 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yards. But the defense played, I thought, really well today. The thing is, the 2 interceptions from McLeod Bethel Thompson, that's where my issue is for tonight. In that both plays were very similar in that he underthrew his receiver on those. He didn't give his receiver a chance to make a play, and the Owl player made the play. And to me, the first one especially was closer to the sideline. You've got to put more power into that, because if your receiver can't catch it, I want that ball going out of bounds. But this was the same thing with Taylor Cornelius. And I'm not saying McLeod Bethel Thompson, Taylor Cornelius, he's better than Taylor Cornelius. But the issue with Taylor Cornelius had too a little bit last year was underthrowing his receivers and putting the ball closer to their feet. And he did that, and it cost them. And that was 2 interceptions. And in the end, McLeod Bethel Thompson was brought in to win football games. You got to go win football games. They spent the money on this. And we heard the chants of Trey Ford. I was texted many times from various people that there was no chance. We heard it on the broadcast. And I understand where that's coming from, because, look, they're 0-2 to start this season. And if I had watched today's loss, if Trey Ford's in that lineup, do they win today? I don't think so. But what I get out of that as an observer of this franchise is I'm getting to analyze, can Trey Ford be a starting quarterback legitimately in this league? With McLeod Bethel Thompson, we're not here to evaluate him. We're not here to see, can he be a quarterback? He's here supposed to win football games. And today it came down to it. He's paid the big bucks, and he let the team down. And they're 0-2, and it doesn't get any easier for the next 2 weeks. They've let 2 games slip away right off the bat. And now you get Toronto next week, you get BC the week after, you go into a bye week, and I'm not going to go on my full Chris Jones rant that I thought maybe I would do today. But I will say the clock's ticking. Clock's ticking. Wins got to start coming. Wins got to start happening. Because if they don't, because also with this move to MBT, you went against the fans. You went against the casual fans. Yep. That's why there's those chants here. And I have no problem making football decisions based on football decisions. But you have to understand there are the ramifications. And there's going to be a lot now. Good thing this team's on the road for the next 2. Because there's going to be a lot of pressure to play Trey Ford if things don't get going well. So tonight, to me, it really does come down to, if I have to look at a reason that the Edmonton Elks lost, it's their high-paid $400,000 quarterback who threw 2 interceptions, didn't throw for a touchdown, and this team's 0-2.
Couldn't agree with you more. No, I 100%. I'm going to get into the nasty chat here a bit. It's buzzing. It's frustrated, but there are some positive comments here as well. Silver Capri, Ian. The first one was thrown into double coverage. 2, paying big money for bad decisions. That's and underthrown. No arc on that ball. If he puts that arc in front of the receiver, that's a touchdown. And don't forget,
Actually,
there was a wide open drop touchdown too.
There was a lot of missed plays on the offense, and yes, I'm glad you brought that up because Dylan Mitchell. Do I have how much time was left on here? 11:41 in the fourth quarter left. Dylan Mitchell drops an easy touchdown.
Sure touchdown.
That's a touchdown right there. And he had a great game last week. But we also saw Curly Gittens Jr. earlier in the game drop a sharp catch. Well, I could go after MBT a little bit here, but those receivers got to help him out too there. And who knows where that game goes if Dylan Mitchell catches that football.
That's exactly
You
it.
have to catch that football. You can't, how do you let that one slip through your hands?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It's not like the defender was all over you. It's not like you had a defender jumping in front of you and had a catch. It was clear as day. You were just watching that football come in. You need to catch that. And Dylan Mitchell dropped the ball, no pun intended on that one, literally and figuratively there, which did not help this football team.
Dale Wright, another timely interception inside 5 minutes for the guy you've paid to be your leader and MVP on offense. McDavid, 97, says Elks won't win a game this year. Derek Knight says, why waste Trey Ford? JL, is play calling terrible due to O-line being bad, so you stuck with 2-yard passes over and over again? Dale Wright chimes in again. They'll win lots of games this year. They played well today, but some main guys let them down at key times. And the defensive play calling was poor tonight.
Defensive?
That's what he said. I don't know. I thought defensively they held their own.
23 points allowed. In the Canadian Football League, if you're going to tell me that you're going to give up 23 points, I take that. I take that any day with the defense. And I'm sorry, we don't get the official stats pack. I'll learn this tomorrow or this weekend when I get the official stats pack. The Owls had a couple of opportunities in great field position, and the Elks held them. The Elks defense held their own. If Tyson Philpott, only 5 catches for 49 yards. They did a fantastic job stopping Philpott. Again, I'll take away that first drive for the Montreal Alouettes where they drove 8 plays, 83 yards.
Yeah,
they were great after that for the most part. They did their job. That's what I would want from this defense this season. Now, the only thing they didn't do was get a turnover themselves. Although discipline, something we also talked about, they did get the Montreal going for a horrible 3rd and 15 gamble.
Yeah.
Get stopped immediately.
That was terrible.
But then a penalty called, and that was one. It wasn't a lot of penalties for the Elks, but that was a crucial one, and that was a right call. But that hurt the team because you got your turnover and you were being placed at midfield or inside midfield. And who knows what could have happened. There's another mistake right there.
You were in scoring distance at that point. You could have kicked a field goal right from there. And, you have not just McLeod Bethel Thompson. I think he was the worst of them all. But you had drop passes at at poor times.
Well,
you had a defense that, on a 2nd and 3 late in the game, you need to stop them. Fletcher goes off tackle for a 40-yard touchdown. Earlier in the first half, on a 2nd and long, Fletcher on a screen pass that he almost fell, goes for a 40-yard, takes it in for another 40-yard touchdown. Those big plays are what is ultimately killing the Elks. But I thought that was kind of a bend but don't break game from that defense. You're not gonna shut any of these teams out, but they did enough to win that game. There's no question that the defense did enough to win that game. Over to the Paris Jewelers inbox. Babbitt Stash says, disappointing, boys. Elks cleaned up the penalties, but that drop on that deep ball to Mitchell was a major blow and killed any chance they had. Oh, look, here's the boys. It sucks. The vibes were good even though the crowd was small. Just too many big plays allowed. 0-2 to start again is bunk.
Also praising the Purefoy hit.
YTT and Zach.
Holy hell, worth the price of admission. The Mitchell drop, that was a big one. I also want to go to, there was the missed field goal by Cody. And before the play, you just saw Lucius Purifoy running back. Noticing no one was back there, and he then returned it. I really want to know where Javon Leake was.
Yeah, me too. Because
I have no
that
idea
is
why
not a good cover team. That, like your special teams, when you're on the field goal unit, that is offensive linemen. And that's why Giz made a living off of returning missed field goals for touchdowns.
If I'm Javon Leake, if I'm Mario Alford in this league, if I'm Dedman in Ottawa, those are the moments I want the missed field goal. Like, that's what I want, because that's when you have the best chance of returning a kick. And I have no idea why he wasn't out there. And I'm really intrigued. Did he not go out there? Was that a design from the special teams coordinator? I need to know the answer to that one, because that could have been a huge turning moment in itself, that if Cody misses that kick, maybe he returns it. Maybe instead, the Edmonton Elks, they're pinned deep in their own territory. And so we talked about the field position game in that. And, at the end of the first half, Montreal drives, takes a 7-point lead. Well, in the ensuing kickoff, Leake puts them in field goal range almost. They get into field goal range. They kick a field goal. They get 3 points in the first half, make it a 4-point game. Years past, that is an easy 7-point deficit the Elks are going into the halftime with. That's what Javon Leake brings you. So why wasn't he back there for that missed field goal? And that's something that I'm very fascinated about, and I'm hoping we can find some sort of answer to that one, because whatever it is, something was dropped, whether that was a coaching decision or Leake didn't go out there. Something was missed. And that could have been a huge turning point in this game as well. I do want to jump into the nasty chat here. Edmonton Elks fall 23-20 to the Montreal Alouettes. This is the Green and Gold post-game show. Matt Iwanyk, Jay Milne with you here on Edmonton Sports Talk, live at Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge, where every day is game day, just off of Fort Road. We'll be here all season long for Edmonton Elks games, home and away. We're for pre- and post-game show. And they also have the game day special during the games, which is the cheese and jalapeno smoky. They got 6 o'clock lager in cans, as well as the game day draft. I had the smoky. It was delicious. It was fantastic. We had the waffle. I had the waffle fries. We tried the vinegar on it. I didn't have malt, but they had the white vinegar, and it worked.
It worked.
It worked.
I think malt would have just been a nice icing on the cake. We shared the waffle fries. Maddie was feeding me waffle fries. I was feeding him bites of my chicken wings. It was a very romantic evening here. The stars were shining, as you can see in the background on the roof here at Century Casino. So
it was a great date night.
It was a lovely date night.
It was a wonderful date night.
I challenge you to another. How about next Saturday?
Next Saturday, 4 o'clock. Yeah. How's that sound?
Sounds like a date.
Also, the Worm saying, Maddie, I seen you at Dollarama today. Yeah, I was picking up some hauls and some duct tape for the floor here. My voice is going.
It's going.
Good thing. During the game, it was bad.
Yeah.
I don't know how I have a voice right now, but it seems to be going.
Duck Dad in the nasty chat. 0-4. Is that the end of Chris Jones?
Well, I was going to say, we've got a few of those in. This is where it's difficult for me, and trying to put myself in Rick Lawlisher's shoes. To me, this is going to partly depend on, let's say they go 0-4. Knock on wood, whatever. How do they lose to Toronto and BC? If they lose like they did today, let's say very close football games, afterwards you've got Ottawa, Hamilton, and I need to remember this. Is it BC then Sask, or is it Sask then BC? Sask then BC. So between Ottawa, Hamilton, and Sask, in theory, you could look at that and go, there's potentially 4 wins right there. This team has it in them. If you lose close games to Toronto and BC, with how close they could have won this last 2 weeks, you could sit there and say, if you take Ottawa, Hamilton, and Sask, you're back to 500 at that point. Does he get those Ottawa games? And one mind in me goes, he gets those Ottawa games, but the moment he loses one of them, you go. He's gone. But there's also just that bye week. There's no better time to make a coaching change. There's no better time to give whatever change you're going to make that extra week to prepare their team for it.
But like
the crowds aren't there. This isn't going to help sell tickets on July 14th when the Elks are back home against Ottawa. Fans are upset that they're not seeing Trey Ford. If this team goes 0-4 right now, I would say it's probably 60-40 Chris Jones will be gone. That's what I'd probably put it at. But quite frankly, I think I would almost side on the 60% side of that he should be gone.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that too. If this team goes 0-4, I mean, it's not good enough. But I mean, clearly the talent is there. whether they're firing on all
So then
cylinders at the same
what's
time.
the issue here? Is it just it's too early in the season and trying to bring a team together? You know, it is a new quarterback in the end. Even though he knew Jarius Jackson a bit from Toronto, it is learning this new system. Some new receivers he's got to learn. Yes, he's got Curly Gittens Jr., but he hasn't thrown to Dylan Mitchell before. He hasn't thrown to Eugene Lewis before. For the defense, just getting them all on the same page. You know, the defensive line basically is all brand new this year. Now that they've got off to a hot start to begin this. Is this just a time thing? Or is this Chris Jones just doesn't have it in him right now to coach winners anymore? That they don't because they don't have that killer in them. They don't have the ability to finish off these games. If we go back the last 2 seasons, there's a lot of games these teams have let slip through their hands. This year, this team could be 2-0. This team could be 2-0 if they played the proper fourth quarters back-to-back weeks. So what's the issue then with this?
You know what? It's one of those things. I mean, if we're sitting here at 2-0, I'm not surprised. If Edmonton was 2-0 right now, you wouldn't be shocked. Like
Based on these games, not fully, no.
Both these games could have
Yep.
potentially went both ways. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand that this team is 0-2. They have 0 wins, and you can't change that. But once again, is this a sky is falling position where, you know, it's doom and gloom? No, these are both games that they like two very difficult opponents.
Well, look, Sask, I'm high on Sask, but I'm not going to say they're difficult opponents. They have a brand new coaching staff. They brought in a lot of brand new players. The Elks should be further along than them. The Elks should have some continuity. So I'm not going to, they should be equal to the Saskatchewan Roughriders at the very least. Montreal Alouettes, difficult opponent, 100%. And yet this is the game I think they played better than against Saskatchewan. And is that from the fact that they got a chance to play last week, and this is that they're just developing, they're getting into their own, feeling their way into this season, which isn't great for Chris Jones considering it's a win now season, but maybe they're just feeling their way into this, and maybe this bye week is kind of at the worst time for Chris Jones. Maybe he needs it in week 6 or 7 to allow this team fully to be prepared, but it's happening early. It's happening right after the tough spell, and that may be his job there. Some people asking, one person, I want to get to the ownership question, but saying, can you afford to fire Chris Jones? This is from Calvin C. Y'all actually asked both questions. And hire a new coach, are they still paying for the previous coach? No, the previous stuff is all gone. Chris Jones, if they fire him, they'll owe him for the rest of the season and next year. I would expect that somebody like Jason Shivers would just be elevated to head coach for the rest of the season, interim head coach. I would expect that Gior Simon would be the interim GM for the rest of the season, although I would move on from Gior myself if I was making that move. He's very much aligned with Chris Jones. But then would the new ownership come in first before the firing of Chris Jones? Here's what I think also to this. I would believe if I'm Rick Lawlisher, there's only a couple of interested parties that they're probably talking to still. I go to them. I'm making a call to them. If I'm making this move, and it's not this week, there's no coaching change coming to Edmonton right now. If this team's 0-4 going to that bye, I'm calling those prospective owners and going, do you want me to do anything? Or do you want to evaluate this team on your own? Do you want to make all those decisions? And if any of those people say, you know, we don't want you to make a change, we want to make those, we want to evaluate fully, then you don't do anything. But if they all sit there and say, yeah, we're not keeping this guy anyways, you got to make that move.
Why would he even care? Why would Rick Lawlisher care to contact them?
Because, again, if one of those prospective owners sits there and says, we want to evaluate this, we want to evaluate everything, including GM, head coach, and we want it there. I think because you're in this process with these guys, you got to treat them as they are potentially the new owners already. And you got to start going to them.
First thing they could do is come in and fire Rick Lawlisher.
Oh, well, Rick's going to be gone anyways.
Right.
But right now he speaks to the board. I don't think you answer to the board. I think you answer to the prospective new owners. And you get their feeling out on this. And if those all owners are sitting there saying, nope, time to go, then it's time to go. That's where I'm going with all of that. Was there another one to go into?
Yeah, there was.
While you look, I'm going to jump through the stats of today's game. The Edmonton Elks falling to the Owls 23-20. McLeod Bethel Thompson, 28 of 42, 300 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Kevin Brown, 11 carries, 50 yards. Javon Leake, 2 carries for 6 yards. Curly Gittins Jr., he led the way with 93 reception yards on 7 catches. He had 85 yards, if I'm not mistaken, after the first half. Hergy Mayala, 6 catches, 58 yards. Dylan Mitchell, 5 catches, 61 yards. Eugene Lewis, 5 catches, 54 yards. Kevin Brown added 3 catches for 15 yards, and Malik Flowers 2 catches for 19 yards. Leading the way tackles-wise, Niles Morgan with 5 defensive tackles. Brown, Kendiche, and Curtis all with sacks. Over on the Owl side of things, Cody Fajardo 20 of 30 for 269 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Walter Fletcher leading the way rushing-wise, 12 attempts, 82 yards, and a touchdown. He also added 61 yards on through the air, 3 catches for a touchdown as well. Julian Grant, 6 catches for 89 yards. His longest, though, was 53. Tyson Philpott, 5 catches for 49 yards. Leading the way defensively for them, Darnell Sankey, 8 tackles. He also had a quarterback sack in there. Kicking-wise, Boris Beatty, 2 for 2 today, including, both were 48 yards kicks. And that's what he missed last week. So this week, he made up exactly good for the missed 48-yarder last week. He makes both of his kicks for 48 yards, the 2 field goals. And Julian, the punter, what do we have here? 46 point. Which one is this?
Well, that's a net.
So, there it is. So
yeah.
38 yards net punting. Not as good as that 51 that he had last week.
No.
Did you find the comment?
I think so. There's a lot of discussion about, attendance and fans coming out, and that this is a business that the Edmonton Elks are a part of. It's a business. This is Jason the Acadian. It's a business, but they had a tornado warnings before the game. Lots of seats sold that people were not at. All the tailgate spots are sold, but it's half empty due to the weather. McDavid replies, I get that, but let's not pretend the attendance last year wasn't an issue. Not all relying on weather. If this team is a winning club, people show up, rain or shine. I agree. There's been too much losing. I mean, Chris Jones has a 2-18 home record.
Yep.
That's not going to put butts in the seats.
Nope.
There's no question. So, I mean,
they've been unlucky to start the year. I will give the Elks that benefit of the doubt. Game 1, home opener, supposed to start at 5. Instead, what do you have? You have the Oilers playing, so you got to bump it up. But people are all getting pumped for Oilers Stanley Cup Finals. Plus, you then have very poor weather. Today, as you're getting set for this game, again, there is a tornado warning. There is a storm that rolls through. If you're sitting there at 6 o'clock, at 5 o'clock thinking, do I want to go to the Elks game tonight? And you look outside, you're going, I'm good. So that does hurt. But in the end, the winning is going to be the big thing here. And the Elks are 0-2 at home to start this season. And that's not going to help. And looking at, even if, these are going to be 2 very difficult matchups coming up for this team, going to Toronto, going to BC, and then you got a bye week. So you got a lot of time for this market to forget about you a little bit locally. And you don't have a sexy team coming to town when the Ottawa Red Blacks come. That's going to be a tough one. That's going to be a very difficult game to sell tickets for. And unfortunately, you don't make decisions. You shouldn't make decisions generally based on business when it comes to your football team. But this team's close to where they're in that spot. And they got to find ways to just put butts in the seats. And that may be at some point very soon. You just have to play Trey Ford. Because at least people are excited about him and will come out to see him.
Yeah, no, that's – I mean, if they come back from this road trip and do not get one win out of it, there will be changes. There will have to be, especially heading into a bye week. Time-wise, that makes sense. Couple, questions in the nasty chat. Maddie, can you speak to who these prospective owners actually are, and when would a move like that happen, off-season or sooner? I'm under the understanding, I talked to Tom Richards, who's the chair of the board of directors at the Elks dinner, and this is something I believe that was going to be announced mid-season at one point, but I think now they are going to be waiting till the end of the season. Is that the way you understood that?
No, that'd be completely different. What I knew, that would be new to me, is maybe that's the case. It was they wanted to have this done by training camp.
Yeah.
And now it's going to be done mid-season.
I've heard mid-season, but I still don't even know if that's.
I think one thing that happens, and it was, Tom told us when he went to the podium announcing that they were going to go this way, he didn't know if anyone would be interested.
Yeah.
And that's fair. When there's been a number of CFL teams, open. BC Lions, before Amar Doman took over, there was a lot of, the team was set for sale for a while. And no one knew who was going to buy that team. There wasn't a lot of names being thrown out there. We didn't hear, we didn't have the 3 Down Nation report coming out that 20 people were interested. Montreal Alouettes, same type of thing. I think there was probably more interest than anyone expected when it came to the Edmonton Elks. And then they now have to figure out who's the best owner. That I look at this, it's the best thing that could have happened is that if it was by training camp, I think they were thinking that they would have one person, and then they would rush that deal by training camp to get that one person in so that he could take over. But now there's a couple of interested parties, and I don't really want to fully speak into it because I don't have anything fully confirmed on it. But I think now that there's 2 or 3 really good interested parties. I do know the Oilers are not one of them that they want to speak to. So now it's trying to vet people and go through who would be.
We're live right now. Yeah. Do you want to? Thanks, Carol. What a sweetheart.
Yeah, she was great. Just got me some coffee. Somebody just trying to figure out what we're doing here. We need Renee to tell people a little bit more what's happening. But I think it's trying to make sure that they pick the right people now. And how do you figure that out? I think that's what they're just trying to figure out. So we'll get some answer, I think, at some point mid-season. But what I would say is now it's a point of they're just trying to make sure they pick the right one, but they do have options for that. When we look at, let's get back looking to this game, though, a little bit more. There's a lot to still get to. We've talked to MBT and his interceptions. I will go with Javon Leake. The one concern I have with him, fumbles. He did it in preseason. He fumbled last week. He dropped the ball again today, and they recovered. But he dropped the ball again today. And this is becoming worrisome for me because as good of a kick returner as he is, as electric as he is, I'm scared we're going to be going, okay, well, either this is going to the house or they're losing the football. And that's a dangerous game to play.
I agree. It was very lucky that was not a turnover as well because it bounced off his chest and essentially right into the other returner's arms off the bounce. Yes, that is concerning. So it's a bit of a give and take thing because, going into the half, it was 17-10. But then with under a minute left, you have Javon Leake. And we both said right away, this would have never happened before for any.
They would have been pinned deep.
In Edmonton.
They would have
take
a couple knees, and we would have saw the team run to the locker room down 7.
But Javon Leake makes a massive return, sets them up to get them into that field goal range. Boris Beatty hits a 48-yard field goal, and it's 17-13 at half. That's a major game change. So
56-yard return for him.
56-yard return. So there's that too. So he's pretty damn special. I'm pretty sure he would be leading the league in return yards. I mean, on his kickoff, he had 4 for 118. He averaged almost 30 yards. That's impressive. So I guess, yes, that is, you have to be concerned with his ball handling capabilities.
They got to work with him on it.
But the upside is a lot greater, I feel. I mean, let's
I just figure out how to hold on to the damn football. You've been playing this game for how long? Hold on to the damn football. He cost, we could sit here and say he cost the team once already for that. What is the movie? What's the movie with, is it Indiana football? Is it The Program? Which one is it called? I can't remember, where the guy has to hold the football the entire time.
Oh, that's The Program.
The Program. And then he fumbles it in the classroom, and they all jump on it and all that. Javon Leake needs to hold on to the football all week and never let go of it. And the team needs to try to get it out of his hands, but he needs to work on holding on to that damn football because it could have been another bad turnover again this week and in back-to-back weeks, and this cost them in the preseason with Javon Leake. I am now in that moment of I am very worried about this part. We had the weather warnings today. I'm putting the warning, the watch, not the warning yet.
Okay.
I'm going to, but I'm not fully there yet, but I got a Javon Leake fumble watch happening where I need him to fix that. I do not want to go to warning system here. I want to be able to end that call. The next few weeks, I really want to see him hold on to the football. Protection. Ball protection.
You know, there's obviously a lot of concern. We're seeing it in the chat. We're seeing it in the inbox. You know, if you look at the stats, and the stats were similar in week 1, where you have these kind of, call it a coin flip game, right? But if you look at the stats, time of possession, Edmonton 30 minutes, Montreal 29 minutes. First downs, Edmonton 26, Montreal 16. The only one that stands out as a major negative is the turnover battle. So, you know, say all you want about Chris Jones, about the defense. You know, it's one thing or another right now. Last week it was the defense in the fourth quarter that obviously led to their demise. Today it was a few errant passes from your what's supposed to be your big shot quarterback, $400,000 quarterback, throwing lame ducks over the middle where receivers are open. Then you have, you know, and he's underthrowing the ball, not putting it in the right spot. Then you have a big drop that was a sure touchdown. So, when you add all these things up, and it's not, and like we say, we don't know if this is a consistent trend or if they're just unlucky right now.
Well, I'm going to go, like, it's the penalties. We talked about the Elks. They only took 4 penalties. We're going to talk about the one that took away the third down turnover. When MBT threw that pick, they also took a 15-yard unnecessary roughness on that play. So immediately the Owls started with their ball at their own 50.
Yep.
Like, right there, they're not, like, they only take how many penalties today was 4 for 37 yards. 15, though, you gave up 15 yards on one penalty, and you gave up 10 yards, but also a turnover on a second one. That of those 4, they were costly. 2 of them were costly to this football team. I'm not going to say, I think overall discipline was better, but there's just, with this team, I don't know what it is, but over the last number of years, it's just, they just always make those little errors at the worst times, and they get in their own way. They stumble on their own feet, and they just can't get things done. And I understand why Elks fans would be frustrated and tired, and this is why I understand why Elks fans don't want to go to games anymore, because it's just like, what new way could this team lose?
Right.
I think if we go over the last 2 years, week 1 last week with the 3 plays from the 1, and then the Saskatchewan Roughriders getting 9 points in, like, after a touchdown, not even. It was
14 points.
It was 14. It was seconds.
Yeah.
Because they got the touchdown and the rouge on the next play, and there's always just something with this team, and today just interception with these turnovers, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating to see, and it's when are they going to finally just get that killer instinct in them, or get that instinct to finish off these teams? Because we could easily be sitting here going, man, Jay, you're right about this team. They're 2-0. And they're going to be taking on the Argos next week. And they're going to be taking on the BC Lions. And, man, this is going to be a great season. That 6.5 bet you have on CoolBet, it's looking great right now. But they've stumbled over their own feet. And this week, if you just want to go for it, the pick by MBT, under 5 minutes. Last week, I don't know if I still have my stats here, if I could pull it, when they had the lead with 13:38 to go in the fourth. You're so close.
21-8 lead.
21. You're so close to the finish line. You're so close, yet you can't get it done, and it doesn't get easier over the next 2 weeks. But I guess also I'll go, is this going to deflate this team? They had a nice response from last week. But are they going to be sitting there looking at themselves in that locker room going, what do we got to do to get a win?
No, because it wasn't like they played their best game and they got beaten. They haven't put together a game. Right? They simply haven't. I mean,
but Montreal today was really for them.
Montreal played a pretty damn good game.
If I watched this football game until 5 minutes to go in the fourth, I would say the Elks played a pretty good game. I would sit there and say they actually played a pretty good game.
Yeah, I mean, timely errors, timely turnovers. It seems like, hey, maybe that's what the trend is. Timely bad turnovers at bad points in the game. Right?
And how do you coach
Last
that out
year,
of a team?
You don't. It's just
How
not,
does that?
Yeah.
Are we talking curses here?
I don't know. I mean,
We
Cody
talking curses.
Fajardo didn't throw any interceptions tonight.
Well, is that
He had a clean
okay?
sheet.
Is that a thing on the defense? Is when are they going to start creating turnovers? That's the one thing about now. This is still Jason Shivers, but the thing about Chris Jones' defense, not only do they not give up points, but they turn the ball over.
Yes.
And that hasn't happened through a few seasons here with the Edmonton Elks with Chris Jones returning, and that's still not happening with this team. So how do you go and coach this team to more turnovers? Are they capable of those more turnovers?
I don't know, but nobody that's watched both these games would say, "Oh my gosh, this Edmonton team is the worst team we've seen." No, they've been in these games, but
is it improved enough? I guess.
You know what? It's hard to say, but if things, Shaggy and St. Albert is in the Paris Jewelers inbox.
These are going to come. These are going to come a lot.
When do you finally fire Chris Jones? Do you have to wait until 0-8 again? This team knows how to lose. That's an interesting point, that this team knows how to lose. 2-18 at home. This franchise has become a perennial joke franchise. You see how empty the stadium is. When you hear Elks, their entire history has been a disaster.
Yeah, I can't dispute anything with that. Look, these Chris Jones calls, they're going to be happening now until they win football games. To Shaggy and St. Albert, I will just throw this out there. There's no way it goes to 0-8. No chance.
No. 0-4 max.
0-5, I would say. Max.
You think so?
I think there is still a chance that maybe he gets those Ottawa games. But if you drop that first one to Ottawa, you're not going to win any football. Like, when could you see a win after that? And so I could see if he's not let go after. Sorry, we're on the air right now. We're on the air. Apologies. If you get to 0-4 and you hit a bye week, that I could see generally would you make that change. But again, I could maybe see Rick Lawler going, look, there's these 4 winnable games. If they go win them, they're 4-4, back to 500. So I 0-4, 0-5. Those are the lines for me. I can see either of those two. But there's no way this is going to 0-8. There's no chance that Rick Lawler will let this get to 0-8. It will be done. Chris Jones will be gone well before that. What were you going to ask?
Is there any way that they get on with it and get rid of Chris Jones right now?
No.
Is there any chance?
I would put it at 5%.
Yeah.
If they got blown out today, if we were talking about the Montreal Alouettes winning 40-0 today, yes, I could start having that conversation. But again, through 3 quarters and 10 minutes, they had a chance to win this football game.
Yeah,
so,
I know. I hope that's not the trend of the story we're telling every post.
I don't know how you go to the team and everyone and go, we're getting rid of this guy when you guys are maybe just right on that cusp. I haven't really recalled seeing that in the CFL.
So then it's next week or bust. But hey,
largely.
Look, wait a minute.
Maybe 0-3 is the line.
Wait a minute though, because this was, you had said that this was a non-winnable game, that they would not win this game.
Well, that's why. I thought
they could have won this game.
I know, and that's why I'm not as angry today. Although Penner Pancakes did say I'm fired up, and I don't feel I'm that fired up. This isn't fired up yet. But that's where it's. Okay, I thought that was me for a second.
I did
knocked
too.
something
You
down.
moved and something
I moved
fell,
and something fell in. But no, it's because Montreal's a good football team.
They are.
And that's where I wanted to see them win a close game, or if they're going to lose a close game. And the score sheet does say they only lost by 3. The last touchdown, to me, it was more of a 10-point loss. But again, through 3 quarters and 10 minutes, it was a close football game.
Can I just mention,
I don't know how you fire Chris Jones after this one.
If Purifoy goes in head first on that short kick at the end of the game.
We haven't even talked about that. What a kick first by Boris Bean.
What sorcery that was
amazing.
Right? I've seen that before.
That's soccer.
That
amazing.
Is just impressive. If Purifoy goes in head first and actually attacks that ball, that's Edmonton ball.
Potentially. Very likely.
It is.
Very likely. Yeah.
I don't know what you're thinking. That's your job on that kick is to get in there.
I think
like
he was
a
just
bat out
prepared
of
that
hell.
the ball was going to go behind him and wasn't.
It went off the defenders and right
I think
to
it just
him.
shocked him. Must have. That's the only thing I could think
that
of.
shocks you, and that's your job on a short kick is to recover the ball. But that was a very well executed short kick, and that could have really changed this outcome.
Well, this is the CFL. Doesn't take long to get in field goal range at that point.
Nope.
And Boris Beatty, 248 yarders. It's not that far to get into field goal range.
With room, too.
With room. This is the Green and Gold post-game show. Iwanyk and Jay Milne. Elks fall to the Owls 23-20. I must say, a lot of Elks jerseys around here. I feel like there's a lot of people coming from the game here to Century Casino, so that's the thing you're going to want to do in future games. Come on down to Century, see us for the pregame show, get a bite to eat, play some games, get on the LRT, head to the Elks game afterwards, take the LRT back here and have a fun time here at Century Casino. I will say one thing more on Chris Jones before we move on, just looking at his future. I'll be intrigued to see how next week, how he handles quarterbacking in terms of if MBT now, actually I should say the next 2 weeks, if MBT gets off to a little bit of a slow start, is he going to pull the trigger and go to Trey?
No.
I'll be intrigued by that.
I don't see it.
And that could be a reason he gets let go, because there may be a situation where if you're not winning and you're not ready to go to the next guy,
yeah,
especially the one that the fans want to see,
yeah,
that may be the reason that you lose your job even sooner.
It could be the end of him.
That could be the ultimate downfall of Chris Jones with all of this. So we'll see. And now it's going to be a fascinating game, though, because MBT going up against his former team. You got Curly's Getting Jr. going up against his former team. You got Jake Sresna on the other side going up against his former club. So we'll see how that goes. The one thing I would say, too, though, where it'd be tough for a coaching change next week, they play on Saturday against the Argos. Then it's a short week Thursday against BC. That's a pretty quick turnaround.
Well, and that's why I said.
I think you hold on then at that point. If Rick Lawlisher has it in his mind, I'm done, this may be a Jay Woodcroft situation where even if they win in BC, potentially there might be just a change no matter what. Rick Lawlisher's done that before when he fired Danny Machocha as a GM. The team was off to a poor start. They won a football game. The next day, the press conference was called where Rick Lawlisher fired Danny Machocha. So he has done that before, too. So next week could be very well Chris Jones coaching for his job.
Here's
Straight
an
up.
interesting one from the Nasty Chat. Calvin C., thanks for listening. I see you've been in here quite a bit. We appreciate it. Is this MBT now? Like, is this him? Is this
who he always was?
Or is he better than what he's shown so far?
To me, this is who he always is. MBT, I've never been sold as this top-end Michael Riley, Bo Levi Mitchell, Zach Collaros level quarterback. He's a quarterback that is inconsistent, that some weeks will play great.
Right.
Some weeks will go throw for 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, and be fantastic.
Like last week.
Like other weeks, he is known for his interceptions. You go look at his career stats, he throws interceptions. That's one of the stat lines on him. I have felt in his career he had 2 good football seasons, and that is it. And in one of those seasons, he led his team to the Grey Cup, but he didn't even win that Grey Cup. It was Chad Kelly that came and won that Grey Cup. 3 times in his career, he has been the starting quarterback, and his head coach has benched him the next week. This is, to me, who McLeod Bethel-Thompson is. He is an above-average quarterback. And that's partly why I was so frustrated with this move, is that if you had told me a Michael Riley-type quarterback was going to take over instead of Trey Ford, I could have lived with that. But this is who MBT is. I'm not surprised by any of this. I don't think there's much more that you're going to get. You're not going to get an MBT who's going to be consistent for 18 straight weeks. That's at least my take of McLeod Bethel-Thompson.
Yeah, I think you get what you get with him. I think it's like you say, it's a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde. Whereas one day he can, tear the cover off the ball, throwing it so hard, and I mean, they did stretch the field tonight, which was nice to see, right? I mean, that one play down the sideline, they had a connection with Mitchell down the sideline that was just a crazy catch. That was nice to see. They had some longish plays, but when the time came, they really air it out and find your open receiver downfield.
They let him down too. I have to as much as I'm going to rip on MBT.
Receivers.
Dylan Mitchell still dropped that ball. He still dropped that ball with 12 minutes to go in the game. That was a sure touchdown. That's what was the score at the time of that one? I need to double check that one. Because I don't want to just throw MBT completely under the bus today.
No, and I mean, if that's like we said it, if that is a caught pass, that is a walk-in touchdown. That's just a game changer.
I think this is the
you
one.
Never know how that changes the momentum.
It was 11:46 in the fourth. A thrown pass to him at the time. It was a 17-13 ball game for Montreal, so you would have taken the 2017 lead.
Yeah, and that's
the receiver let down the quarterback in that situation right there. That wasn't good.
Let's talk a little. Let's give some credit. We harped on Purifoy for not being aggressive on that short kick, but you gotta admit you felt him, you saw him in the defensive secondary, lighting up their receiver speaker over the middle. That sets a tone. That changed, and then, I thought the defense had a lot more jam to it as the game went on. I thought they got stronger and stronger as the game went on. I thought their first half was obviously much weaker, but they, the bend but don't break mentality, and I was quite happy with how that defense played, holding them to, as it is what it is. But
welcome to the Green and Gold postgame show, Jay.
When you're holding,
I've been doing this for a long time here. Now you're getting to enjoy this with me.
Well, when you're holding the Alouettes to 23 points,
like that's where I'm. Like the one texter earlier,
you should win that game.
Was saying that the didn't like the defensive play calls. I'm good with the defense today, especially like where the Edmonton Elks are. Like that's a winning defense most nights or for most teams.
Yeah.
In the Canadian Football League, you're going to tell me 21 to 24 points my defense is going to give up? I want that all day long.
You'll take that.
You should be able to score 28 or more.
100%.
And so I don't have real issues with the defense. It's some dumb penalties, some broken coverage, but no game's going to be perfect all the way. In the end, MBT didn't throw for a touchdown pass tonight. And then offensively, they didn't do enough. Do want to jump into the nasty chat here. Dale writes saying, Matty, errors at bad times. Winning culture is contagious, so is losing culture, which Dusty adding, there was a text earlier, this team only knows how to lose. Shotgun Sports, which is either Scout or Catherine. I'm assuming it's Scout, from the Elks Call, which is a friend of Edmonton Sports Talk. Absolutely painful tonight. Elks look good against the champs, but this was a TSN turning point. Penalties hurt once again. A critical drop with the Dylan Mitchell. The has been a shining star. As Scout, Catherine, you were shown a couple times on the TSN broadcast. They had a good shot of the two of you there, so looking good at the game at the very least. But it is Scout. There we go. Scout's in there. Well, you and Catherine are looking good on TSN there with some great thoughts right there. Shaggy in St. Albert. It seems like after three quarters, Riders and Owls went, this is enough. We're not losing to the Elks. And I don't know what happened. Like I would understand a little more if it came after the halftime. You sit there and say, coaching adjustment changed. How does it happen in the fourth quarter back-to-back weeks? That's the thing that I just don't get.
That's the beauty of sports, Matthew. There's some things you can't answer, you can't find a stat for. You can look through all the stats you want and ask, why is this happening late in games? Why are, last week it was the defense that crumbled. This week it was MBT that, faltered.
MBT number one.
Faltered. Mitchell's got to be
receivers, Mitchell, and then there's the Gittins drop too. I'll say drops. I'll put that 2. I will say those penalties 3. Not a lot of penalties, but 2 critical penalties. Those would be my 3 reasons they lost in that order.
I think that's fair. And I don't know what else, I don't know what, it's honestly, I swear to God, this is what I think. I think it's just, they just aren't having the bounces go their way to put it together for a game.
And they're not a sound team mentally yet.
Yeah, this is not a 4-14 football team, though. I can tell you that.
No, but right now I can't sit here and say they're a 9-9 football team either.
I didn't say that.
No, I know.
They're. This is not a terrible, oh, my God, this is the worst football team the Elks have put together team. You can't deny that.
No, but I was told win now this season. That's what this season was about. And they're 0-2. And they've got 2 more tough games coming up.
It's funny, it keeps coming back to these critical times.
Mm-hmm.
Critical mistakes at critical times.
Winners know how to get through that, though. Winners
That's
know how
right.
to. We talk about it all the time. You need with the Oilers. You need to bring in those veterans that know how to win in the Stanley Cup playoffs to get through there.
Critical mistakes at critical times. That is the kryptonite.
MBT has
Elks.
led a team to a Grey Cup. He should have some sort of that. Who else would have? I guess the rest of offense really doesn't have much else. Does Purefoy have a ring?
That would be the takeaway that I would have. And how do you remedy that? I don't know. How do you not make those mistakes? I don't know.
If we had the answer, we'd be hired on that team tomorrow, I think.
I think I would be. I think I'd be demanded. Dale Wright, D's been good if you just look at stats. But both this week and last week, they allowed huge turning point plays at horrible times. Tonight, the TD with 20 seconds left in the second quarter. Also, the late TD run on a simple, obvious play call by the offense. That one burnt my britches too, Dale. That's an off tackle, and it made it look like they rewrote the offensive playbook, and the Elks defense was stunned to see a straight off tackle. I mean, and credit to their old line, they blocked it up well for sure, but that was a letdown at a critical point.
I could point to some mistakes that the Owls defense though made today. Good defenses make mistakes.
Nobody's going to play a perfect game.
I know, that's where I just Dale saying if you just look at the stats, the D was good. I think that they still play good. There's going to be those mistakes. And, unfortunately for the Elks, they're not a team that when they make the mistakes, they're just small mistakes. They seem to be amplified a little bit more.
Smaller, for sure.
But you're not going to play a perfect 60-minute football. That's just never going to happen. You're going to have some – the other team, Montreal Alouettes are a good football team. Yeah. They're going to find ways to get points. They're going to find a way to take, to beat you a little bit. I'm okay with that. In the end, if McLeod Bethel Thompson doesn't throw 2 interceptions, if they don't, if they instead punt as opposed to go for it on third down, maybe the Edmonton Elks, it would have been a field goal at least 1 point. The last interception for MBT, they were in field goal range. So right there, you're making the game a little bit closer. Like, it's those moments that all of a sudden this team possibly wins that football game. Or maybe instead of those 2 interceptions and the turnover, one of them just leads to a touchdown for the Edmonton Elks. It's a different football. The defense to me did enough to win this game that I'm fine with. I think in the end, I saw an improvement from last week to this week to the defense.
Sure.
Is there more improvement to come for this defense? 100%. 100% this defense could still take more steps. But from week 1 to week 2, we saw an improvement. We saw them get better. What more could you ask for from that? Defense, it went the other way a little bit.
Just don't know who you are right now. It's hard to recognize.
In what way?
I don't know.
I'm a defensive guy.
Doom and gloom.
Look, and I thought I would be doom and gloom tonight, but it was they. I was worried that when kickoff happened early on, actually, this is what I was feeling after the Owls went up 7-0.
Yeah, it was pretty fast.
That the Elks, I was never going to feel like they had a chance in that game. For the majority of this football game, I felt the Elks could actually win it. Like, oh my God, they're only a player or 2 away from winning this football game.
Yeah.
Against the Montreal Alouettes, who I think were now the best team in the Canadian Football League or something like that.
Defending Grey Cup champs.
Defending Grey Cup champs. Just took down the Bombers last year. Handled them in Winnipeg. Credit for that. But to Chris Jones, in my evaluation of Chris Jones, he told me they got to win. They're 0-2. They're 0-2.
Facts are facts. Record is record. But is there a way to say it's a exciting 0-2? Or is that
it's
just
a frustrating one for me.
Is that just loser speak? I mean,
no,
both games.
There could be an exciting 0-2. There could be.
Maybe not what people want to hear, but it's the truth.
Yeah, but I this is a scary 0-2 for me because I just see what's coming up, and this season is going exactly as I thought to a degree.
Yeah, but you can't say that because this Montreal team was a team that was expected to blow and pump the tires off of the Elks.
They still lost.
I
saw this all coming from February. I saw this happening in February.
You won't continually lose games in this fashion. No, you won't.
I've seen it for...
The law of averages say you won't.
With Chris Jones, I've seen it the last 2 seasons. I've seen it. It hasn't turned
They have
yet.
not been in games like this.
Yes, they have. I could put 2 years ago.
Not
against,
routinely.
2 years ago against Winnipeg and Edmonton,
No.
they had 2 turnovers. They couldn't turn those into points. That was a winnable football game. I could go to so many games over the last 2 years and go, this game they could have
So
won.
many
This game they could have won.
I mean,
this game
but
they could have won.
not 2 in a
If
row
they
like this.
And now you're making me go back to think of a lot of bad memories there, Jay, and I'm not ready to do that.
Sure, I don't want to give you the trauma, but you know what I mean. Do you get the gist of what
Yes,
I'm
I
saying?
do, but also in February I saw that this happened. I saw an 0-4 start to the season. I saw this all coming, and I shouldn't be right. I shouldn't be right over Chris Jones, but I'm being right now. I'm being right, and I don't want that. And I'm concerned about, here's my issue with the fact that they dropped these 2 games. We're saying they were so close into it, is that there's also going to be a point where they're not going to be close. When are those games coming?
How do you know that? How can you say that confidently?
Because I don't think this team is good enough.
No.
They're not compared to
You're going to say
Toronto
that after
and BC.
they dropped the game they could have should have beat Saskatchewan.
You want to know something?
And then they beat the best team in the league, in your opinion?
I will say this about the Elks team. Maybe they look past the Edmonton Elks because they just took down the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I have seen that in sports a number of times where a team has that big win, and then the next week they're past it because it was such an emotional win. They go into Winnipeg, they got it. Maybe they overlooked the Edmonton Elks a little bit here. There's going to be potentially a bad game still here, and we haven't had that.
They've played it.
And that's the problem, is that they've already now let 2 slip away.
They've played.
That may have been very important
that
down
have been
the season.
bad. They've been more good, but they've had bad moments, and they've lost them.
But is there going to be a situation where we're going to see this team now have just that?
What about
bad
a situation when they put it together?
I haven't seen that over 2 seasons in 2 weeks.
Okay, that's a
with
fair
this
point.
coach, with this
That's a
GM.
fair point.
I haven't seen that happen.
You have a better chance of seeing it.
I can't even recall when I last saw that happen with this franchise. I can't recall. Penner's Pancakes. Maddie is getting me worked up. LOL. Are you with me or against me, though, Penner's Pancakes?
Oh, he's against you.
Is he?
I tell you that. I'm just assuming.
No, I'm fine with that. A couple things we do got to get to before we wrap up shortly here at Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge. This is the Green and Gold post-game show. Iwanyk, Jay Milne. Player of the game at TSN Turning Point. Well, not TSN. I always called it TSN.
TSN Turning
It's
Point.
not
That's
TSN.
fair.
We're not at TSN. EST Turning Point of the game. Let's start with the EST Turning Point. What do you want to go with your EST Turning Point? I'm debating between 2.
Yeah, I know. I think the TSN Turning Point was that.
EST Turning Point.
EST Turning Point.
I got to get used to that.
I mean, really, if we're talking about like what was, well, I have 2 as well. Gosh darn.
What are your 2?
Okay, my 2 is the fake punt that they stopped and then got called back on a penalty, which would have changed the momentum of that game, and then the Mitchell drop.
So I had Mitchell drop than the MBT last pick.
Yeah.
But I think that Mitchell drop is the one I'm going with.
I'm going with Mitchell drop too. Yeah, I agree.
They would have been up 20-17 with, what did I say, 5 minutes to go or something like that?
Yeah.
It
just cost you. And that was a walk-in. And
that MBT, he couldn't have thrown a better football on that one.
And think of that.
He couldn't put it in a better spot.
Think of that.
Dylan Mitchell couldn't have more separation from the defensive back. Penner's Pancakes with me. I'm with Maddie 100% on this. So thank you, Penner's Pancakes.
I don't know that we disagreed that much.
We'll just say we did. Makes
we were
for better radio.
saying
Makes for better radio.
The same. Yeah, sure.
Okay, now for you, who's your player of the game?
Walter Fletcher. I mean,
I can't.
How can you deny that? The guy went off.
2 big touchdowns.
2 big touchdowns, 138 yards overall rushing and receiving. Something that, you'd said you'd like to see out of Brown a little bit more often, but he did it. So, yeah, Walter Fletcher, player of the game. And kudos to you. He was one of your players to watch when we did the kickoff show. So, round of clicks for you.
I also did say Nafis Lyon, and he got an interception. I also said Darnell Sankey, and he led the Owls in tackles.
You're just astute. You're a scholar.
I should be a scout for the Elks. These are the guys to watch.
Don't even know if you told them that. I don't know if it would change anything.
Stan Pater in the Paris Jewelers inbox. TikTok, Chris Jones. Still think Jones is gone and Trey Ford is starting by Labor Day. I'll say if Chris Jones is gone, They'll happen well before Labor Day, and I think Trey Ford starts when that coaching change would happen. That would be my prediction. Because it would mean that the offense hasn't been rolling as well. I could see Trey Ford starting at that point. Also added, it's really frustrating for me that Elks under Chris Jones have not shown continuity on defense. Now Morgan is the only guy here from our 2022 defense, and that is disappointing. I will challenge you a little bit on that, Stamphader, in that the secondary, there is continuity from last year to this year there at least. And while there is no continuity between the majority of the linebacking core and the defensive line, they've played well. If there's one area of this team that has generally kind of played well back-to-back weeks, that front seven of the D, I think, has played
100%.
pretty well.
They've been consistently good. I mean,
So.
if you look at the rushing numbers weren't all that great. I mean, they only rushed for what? I mean, as Fletcher had that huge run at the end. Fellas, how are you doing? But they only, they rushed for about 110 yards. Which is not bad. That's manageable. You can live with that. Obviously, he snapped off a couple bigger, larger runs, but yeah, what a game by him, and what a game.
It was a fun game. It was an entertaining football game.
Yeah,
we weren't sitting here bored.
We were not.
Although Jay was also playing with the ponies.
Yeah,
Didn't have a good day with the ponies.
I gave up on the Grays.
Didn't have a good day.
But I hit roulette at halftime,
You
and
did.
I did well, baby.
You did well there. We'll get to final thoughts and all that right away here. Just a reminder, tomorrow morning, right here on Edmonton Sports Talk, we do got Hello Hockey, 10 o'clock in the morning, Tom Gazzola and Sean Bell. 4:30, the GCL Diesel Oil Stream pregame show, Tom Gazzola, YouTube, Trev, and Matt Cassidy. They'll get you set for Game 4 between the Oilers and the Panthers, as the Oilers will look to not allow the Stanley Cup to be awarded on Rogers Place ice. They'll look to not make sure that Matt Tkachuk doesn't hoist the Stanley Cup on Rogers Place ice, and look to force a Game 5 out in Florida. And then Sunday morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, the VAP Golf Show with Murray McCourt, Curtis Stock. And then we're back with regular programming on Monday, 6 o'clock in the morning. The Nielsen Show, I'm sure there'll be a lot to be discussed of this game between the Elks and the Owls. Also tomorrow on Hello Hockey and the VIP Golf Show, 2 more chances to qualify for the $100,000 hole-in-one contest presented by Golf Town if you're still looking for a Father's Day deal. Golftown.com or head on in store. Final thoughts, Jay, about today's game.
I said this last week. Said just take a deep breath, calm down. It's hilarious that people will literally walk up.
Well, he wants to text us.
While I know, but
so I'm giving him the Paris Jewelers inbox. He's got a great Ricky Ray jersey.
Maybe he did have a great.
Yeah, we don't have it on there.
I'd say this: take a breath. The Elks have lost 2
Hopefully
games.
Tommy's not listening.
Oh, who cares? Go fly a kite. They've lost 2 close games against pretty damn good teams. These aren't bottom of the barrel teams by any stretch. They might be facing a team that would be, one they could get next Saturday against the Argonauts. If they can put together some semblance of a full game on all 3 facets of the game, I look forward to that, and I look forward to them getting the job done. So that's my final point. Is chill out. Yeah, it's 0-2. Yes, it's scaring everybody because it's reminiscent of, what's been going on.
The last many seasons.
Right? But I'm sticking with it. I still believe in this team.
I'm glad you have the glass half full. I think for the majority of today's show, I was a little bit glass half full too. But as I said today on the Hangout, as I said on the kickoff show today, I was worried I was going to be coming on here ranting, getting really mad. I worry that that's just been postponed by a week. That next week, I'll go off. I hope I'm wrong. Next week, the Edmonton Elks, they're in Toronto to take on the Argonauts. MBT taking on his former club. That will take place Saturday, June 22nd, which means the Green and Gold Kickoff Show live from right here, Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge, just off Fort Road, where every day is game day. We'll be on the air at 4 o'clock that day. Come on down. It's a road game, so you're not missing a tailgate. You're not missing being at Commonwealth. Come join us here. Getting on the game day special, the cheese and jalapeno smoky, 6 o'clock or lager, game day draft. They also have other great daily specials. What is Saturday? Saturday is prime rib sandwich for $12.99. Yes. So you can come on down to Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge, hang out with Jay and myself. Eric did throw out that he might come next week, too.
Really?
So you might have Lieutenant Eric here as well.
Well, if Lieutenant Eric's here, then Sickler's going to be here. He loves Lieutenant Eric.
Who doesn't love Lieutenant?
I know. He's such
It's-
exactly.
But we've got that next Saturday for you right here on Edmonton Sports Talk. Myself and Jay will have the kickoff and the post-game show right here on Edmonton Sports Talk. I'd like to thank the staff here at Century Casino. Alex, just fantastic. Round of clicks for Alex.
Yep.
Round of clicks for Alex there. She was a wonderful server for us tonight. Thank you. Round of clicks for our listeners, too.
Yeah,
thanks for
thanks,
tuning in
guys.
for the post-game show and
Guys
everyone
and
that tuned
gals,
in
you're the best.
for the kickoff show. As I said, we'll be back with this next Saturday, 4 o'clock. Once again, the Edmonton Elks, they dropped to 0-2 on the season, losing 23-20 to the Montreal Alouettes. On behalf of Jay Milne, I'm Matt Iwanyk. Thanks for tuning into the Green and Gold post-game show. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Happy Father's Day to you,
Thank
Jay.
you, Matthew.
Happy Father's Day to my dad. And I will talk with
Happy
you on
Father's
Monday.
Day to my dad.
Thanks. Have a great night.